Captain Alex Ward groaned as his ship's console sparked wildly, warning alarms blaring. The last blast from the pirate vessel had knocked out navigation, sending his small scout ship spiraling toward the planet below. Struggling with the controls, Alex could only brace himself as the ship slammed into the alien terrain, skidding to a violent halt. The crash left him battered, his vision blurring as pain radiated from a gash on his side. When Alex regained consciousness, a figure loomed over him, tall, willowy, with skin shimmering faintly under the planet's dim sunlight. The alien's face was oddly symmetrical, with glowing eyes and intricate patterns that pulsed like bioluminescent tattoos. Her voice was soft, musical, yet the translator clipped on her chest butchered its elegance. "You are leaking fluids. I will extract what remains viable." She crouched beside him, holding a small glowing device. "Excuse me?" Alex rasped, wincing. "Extract what?" "Do not fear. I will apply my milk to restore your function." Alex blinked, sure he'd misheard. "Your, what?" "My milk. It is a symbiotic substance my species generates for healing. You appear incompatible with traditional methods." Alex groaned, mostly from pain but partly from sheer disbelief. This day just keeps getting better. The alien tilted her head, unbothered by his sarcasm. "Remain still. I will prepare the extraction process." As she rummaged through a pouch at her waist, Alex's thoughts spun. He wasn't sure whether to laugh, panic, or question how his life had spiraled into being offered alien milk by what he assumed was some kind of interstellar healer. The translator's oddly clinical tone wasn't helping. When she returned, she held a small vial of glowing liquid. "This must be integrated. Relax your muscles and close your eyes." Alex couldn't help a dry laugh that quickly turned into a wince. "Relax? Close my eyes? Lady, I just crashed a ship. Forgive me if I'm a little tense." The alien's expression remained serene, her glowing patterns shifting gently. "You are obstructing the process. Relaxation is required for optimal symbiosis." "Symbiosis," he repeated, incredulous. "Look, I'm grateful and all, but maybe explain what that actually means." She placed a cool hand on his shoulder, her touch startlingly firm despite her delicate appearance. "It is a temporary joining. Our energies must align for the milk to function." Her words only deepened Alex's unease. "Okay, joining energy sounds way more personal than I'm comfortable with. You will not need to exert yourself. I will handle the process." He stared at her, debating whether to laugh, argue, or simply pass out again. Before he could decide, she applied the glowing liquid to his wound. A strange warmth spread through him, soothing and tingling simultaneously. He couldn't deny the relief it brought, though his discomfort over the situation remained. The alien, seemingly oblivious to his inner turmoil, continued working. "The process will accelerate your cellular regeneration. You will recover more quickly than your primitive methods allow." "Thanks," Alex muttered. Nothing boosts confidence like being called primitive. "You humans appear fragile but intriguing," she observed. "Your resilience contradicts your fragile physiology." "Fascinating. Glad to be an enigma," Alex quipped, his sarcasm masking his growing unease. "So, how long does this symbiosis last?" "Until your energy stabilizes. Perhaps several of your hours." "Oh, great," he muttered. "A healing milk rave." The alien paused, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "Rave? Your language confuses me. Explain this, rave." "Never mind," Alex sighed, sinking back against the ground. "Just keep doing your thing. And please, no surprises." She nodded solemnly, her glowing patterns shifting into a steady rhythm as she continued applying the strange substance. Alex closed his eyes, not out of trust but exhaustion. His body felt heavy yet strangely light, his pain dulling as the milk worked its magic. Against his better judgment, he started to relax. "You are responding well," she said softly, her tone almost reassuring. "Soon, you will be fully restored. That's nice, Alex mumbled, his words slurring slightly. Just, don't tell anyone about this. My crew doesn't need to know I got healed by glowing alien milk. The alien tilted her head again, her expression unreadable. Your secrecy is illogical. Survival should be prioritized over pride.
Yeah.
Well, Alex muttered, slipping into unconsciousness, humans are complicated. As his breathing evened out, the alien observed him curiously. Complicated indeed, she murmured, adjusting her glowing tools. But intriguing nonetheless. When Alex stirred again, the warm tingling sensation had intensified. He blinked groggily, realizing he felt oddly refreshed despite the lingering ache in his side. The alien was still beside him, her glowing patterns shifting in mesmerizing waves as she worked with precise movements. You are progressing well, she said, her voice calm but slightly muffled by his haze of recovery. The milk has begun integrating. Alex groaned, sitting up slightly. You keep saying that like it's a normal thing. Can't you call it something less weird? It is accurate terminology, she replied evenly. What would you prefer? Anything that doesn't sound like, you know. He trailed off, gesturing vaguely. Something less personal. Her head tilted again in that curious way. You misunderstand. This is purely biological. Your interpretation is peculiar. Alex sighed.
Yeah.
I get that, but where I'm from, Milka has other meanings. Explain. She leaned in slightly, her glowing eyes fixed on him with unnerving intensity. Not happening, Alex muttered, avoiding her gaze. Just forget I said anything. She paused, clearly filing his reluctance away for later consideration. Your cultural sensitivities are inefficient. Honesty would expedite this process. Thanks for the tip, Dr. Philomena, Alex muttered under his breath, earning a blank stare from her. Never mind. Her focus returned to his wound, and she applied another layer of the glowing liquid with practiced care. Alex flinched slightly at the cool sensation, prompting her to glance at him. You must remain still, she said, her tone faintly chiding. The transfer requires precision.
Yeah.
About that, Alex said, his voice laced with suspicion. What exactly is this a transfer you keep mentioning? She adjusted her tools, clearly unfazed by his questioning. It is a temporary alignment of bioenergetic fields. Your physiology absorbs the milk through the process. That's really not helping, Alex said, his brows furrowing. Bioenergetic alignment? Sounds like something out of a bad romance novel. Her patterns flickered briefly, a visual equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Do your romantic texts involve healing rituals? Not exactly, Alex admitted, but they're not far off. Curious, she murmured, her glowing hands moving steadily. Your species seems prone to overcomplication. This process is entirely functional. Well, excuse me for finding it a little intimate, Alex said, gesturing to the glowing liquid and her focused attention. This isn't exactly how we do things. Perhaps your methods are inefficient, she replied without missing a beat. This is the most effective technique available. Alex sighed again, leaning back against the jagged rock behind him. You really know how to make a guy feel special. She paused her work, tilting her head as if considering his words. Do your people equate this with emotional significance? Not usually, Alex said quickly, then hesitated. I mean, it depends. On what? On a lot of things, he said, flustered. Look, can we just focus on the healing part? Her glowing patterns brightened slightly, indicating some kind of mild amusement. As you wish. As she continued her work, Alex tried to focus on anything other than the strange, tingling warmth spreading through him. He couldn't shake the feeling that every word she said carried a double meaning, even though he knew it was unintentional. The translator was probably to blame, but that didn't make it any less awkward. After a few moments, she glanced at him again. You appear tense. This will hinder the process. Gee, wonder why, Alex muttered. Maybe it's because I'm getting milked by an alien. Her expression didn't change, but her glowing patterns shifted in what he assumed was annoyance. You are not being milked. The milk is being applied. Your phrasing is inaccurate.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to describe this without sounding weird, Alex said, his voice tinged with exasperation. You seem overly concerned with semantics, she observed. Your recovery should be your priority. Trust me, I'm all for recovering, Alex said, gesturing to his wound. I just prefer it without the awkward commentary. Her glowing eyes fixed on him again, unblinking. You are peculiar. You're not the first to say that, Alex muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. But thanks for the vote of confidence. She returned to her work, her hand steady as she applied the final layer of the glowing liquid. Alex watched her in silence, torn between gratitude and sheer embarrassment. Despite the absurdity of the situation, he couldn't deny that he felt better, stronger, even. The pain had dulled to a faint ache, and his energy was returning faster than he'd thought possible. When she finally leaned back, her glowing patterns shifted into a steady rhythm. The process is complete. You will require rest to stabilize. Rest, Alex repeated, nodding. Got it. No more awkward alien rituals for a while? Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. Your tone suggests discomfort. Was this process not satisfactory? Alex hesitated, then sighed. It worked, didn't it? That's all that matters. Indeed, she said, standing gracefully. Your recovery affirms the effectiveness of our methods.
Yeah.
About that, Alex said, shifting uncomfortably. Maybe next time, give a guy a little more warning before you start, whatever that was. Noted, she said simply, her glowing patterns flickering faintly. Your feedback is appreciated. Alex couldn't tell if she was being sincere or sarcastic, but he decided not to push his luck. Instead, he leaned back against the rock, letting out a long breath. As strange as the experience had been, he was alive, and for now, that was enough. Alex stretched cautiously, testing the limits of his recovery. To his surprise, the pain had diminished significantly, leaving only a faint soreness. The glowing liquid had worked, though the process remained one of the strangest experiences of his life. His attention shifted to the alien, who was meticulously cleaning her tools with an almost ritualistic precision. So, thanks for saving me, Alex said, breaking the silence. Even if the method was unconventional. It is the optimal method, she replied without looking up. Your physiology responded well to the symbiosis. Right, the symbiosis, Alex muttered, the word still making him uncomfortable. Is that something you do for everyone, or am I just lucky? She finally looked at him, her glowing eyes unblinking. The milk is not given lightly. It requires compatibility and trust. Alex raised an eyebrow. Trust? You didn't exactly ask me first. You were unconscious, she said matter-of-factly. Consent was implied by necessity. Well, that's one way to justify it, Alex said, leaning back with a sigh. You know, humans usually have a whole process for stuff like this. Process? Her head tilted slightly, her glowing patterns shifting. Explain. Alex hesitated, realizing he'd walked into dangerous territory. It's complicated. Let's just say we don't usually jump straight to milk extraction. Her glowing patterns flickered in what he now recognized as amusement. Your species is amusingly inefficient. Glad I could entertain, Alex said dryly, crossing his arms. So, what's the deal with this milk, anyway? Is it some kind of miracle cure? It is a symbiotic substance unique to the lactari, she explained. Its properties enhance cellular regeneration and energy stabilization. Sounds fancy, Alex said. But why does it glow? Is that normal, or is it just for show? The bioluminescence is a natural byproduct, she replied. It indicates the milk's potency. Alex smirked. So, it's like alien grade A milk. Got it. Her expression remained neutral, though her glowing patterns flickered again. Your comparisons are peculiar.
Yeah,
Humans are good at that, Alex said, waving a hand dismissively. So, what's next? Do I owe you anything for this? Payment? A thank you card? She regarded him curiously. Gratitude is sufficient. Monetary exchange is irrelevant. Well, that's refreshing, Alex said with a chuckle. Most people I know would charge extra for premium glowing milk. Your humor is consistent, if perplexing, she observed. Does your species rely on it for survival? Pretty much, Alex admitted. Helps when things get weird. Like this whole situation. Her glowing eyes studied him intently. Your adaptability is notable. Few would respond with humor in such circumstances.
yeah,
Well, humans are full of surprises, Alex said with a grin. Speaking of surprises, do you always carry that milk around, or do you make it on the spot? She blinked slowly, her glowing pattern steady. The milk is produced as needed. Its properties diminish if stored for extended periods. Good to know, Alex said, nodding. So, it's fresh. Great. Her glowing patterns shifted again, and she tilted her head. Your emphasis on freshness is curious. Does it alter your perception of its effectiveness? Alex opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, realizing there was no safe way to answer that. Let's just say humans like things fresh. An intriguing preference, she said, her tone clinical. Does it apply to other aspects of your physiology? Okay, we're done with that conversation, Alex said quickly, holding up a hand. Moving on. She regarded him for a moment before nodding. As you wish. Your recovery is my priority. Glad to hear it, Alex muttered. So, what do you do when you're not milking crash survivors? I am a healer, she said simply. My duties involve ensuring the well-being of those under my care. Right, but what about, like, hobbies? Do Lactari even have hobbies? Her glowing patterns shifted as she considered the question. We engage in activities that promote mental and physical balance. So, space yoga, Alex said with a smirk. Figures. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. Your terminology is inaccurate but not entirely incorrect. Alex chuckled, shaking his head. You know, you're not as serious as you seem. I think you might even have a sense of humor buried under all that glowing alien logic. Humor is not a priority, she replied, though her glowing patterns betrayed a flicker of amusement. Efficiency is paramount.
yeah,
But efficiency's boring, Alex said. You should try being inefficient sometime. It's more fun. Your perspective is unconventional, she said, her tone neutral. But perhaps not without merit. High praise coming from you, Alex said with a grin. Maybe I'm growing on you. She didn't respond immediately, her glowing eyes studying him once more. You are unique. I'll take that as a compliment, Alex said, leaning back with a satisfied smirk. She stood gracefully, her movements fluid and precise. You require rest to complete your recovery. I will monitor your progress. Great, Alex said, stretching again. Wake me up if you need to milk me again. Her glowing patterns flickered, and she tilted her head. Your phrasing remains perplexing. Rest well, human. Alex chuckled as he closed his eyes, her words echoing in his mind. For all the awkwardness, he couldn't deny that the alien was growing on him too. When Alex woke again, the soreness in his body had faded to almost nothing. For the first time in what felt like forever, he could take a deep breath without wincing. He glanced around, spotting the alien standing nearby, her glowing patterns moving in slow, deliberate waves. She turned when she noticed his gaze. You have stabilized, she said, her tone as even as ever. Your body has adapted well to the treatment. Well, that's good to hear, Alex said, sitting up cautiously. Thanks for everything. Even if it was weird. Weird, she repeated, tilting her head. Your language is imprecise. Clarify. I mean, unconventional, Alex said, scratching the back of his neck. Not something I'm used to, that's all. Your adaptability remains impressive, she observed. Few would adjust so quickly to an unfamiliar process.
Yeah.
Well, humans are nothing if not adaptable, Alex said with a shrug. Even if your milk thing still sounds, you know. I do not know, she said, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. Your reluctance to elaborate is consistent but inefficient. Let's just say it's a human thing and leave it at that, Alex replied. So, what happens now? Am I good to go, or is there another round of glowing?
Go.
Involved? You are fit to resume activity, she said. However, I recommend avoiding strenuous exertion for the next several of your planetary cycles. Noted, Alex said. No strenuous exertion. Got it. She paused, studying him with that unblinking gaze. Your humor persists despite recovery. Is this typical of your species? It's kind of our thing, Alex said with a grin. Keeps us sane when things get crazy. Like crash landing on a planet and getting healed by glowing alien milk. Your phrasing remains perplexing, she said, her glowing patterns flickering faintly. However, your resilience is commendable. Thanks, Alex said, standing slowly and testing his balance. So, do I get a souvenir for surviving this? Maybe a bottle of your miracle milk for the road? Her glowing patterns shifted in what he now recognized as amusement. The milk is not a commodity. It is a necessity for survival. Fair enough, Alex said. Guess I'll just have to survive on my own charm and good looks. Your self-assessment is bold, she observed, her tone neutral. But perhaps not entirely unfounded. Hey, I'll take that as a compliment, Alex said, flashing a grin. So, how do we wrap this up? Do I shake your hand, bow, or what? Your customs are unnecessary, she replied. Our interaction concludes with your departure. Straight to the point, Alex said. I respect that. As he prepared to leave, she stepped closer, her glowing patterns pulsing gently. Before you go, a question. Sure, Alex said, raising an eyebrow. What's on your mind? Your species intrigues me, she said. Your adaptability, your humor, your inefficiency. It is both perplexing and fascinating. Thanks, I think, Alex said. We do our best to keep people guessing. Indeed, she said, her glowing eyes fixed on him. I would like to observe your kind further. To understand. Observe? Alex repeated, smirking. That sounds a little intense. You thinking about tagging along? Your terminology suggests partnership, she said. I am uncertain if such an arrangement is optimal. Well, let me know if you figure it out, Alex said. In the meantime, try to keep an open mind. And maybe work on your sense of humor. Noted, she said, her glowing patterns steady. Farewell, human. May your inefficiencies serve you well. Alex chuckled, shaking his head. You know, you're not half bad for a glowing alien healer. Take care. With a final glance, he turned and began his journey back to the crash site, his mind buzzing with the absurdity of it all. He couldn't wait to see how his crew would react to this story, though he'd probably leave out the part about the milk. Some things were better left unsaid.